Hello. Thank you for taking the time to view this ESSA webinar, the Every Student Succeeds Act, on the accountability system. We would greatly appreciate you providing feedback by using the guiding questions document that was sent with this link and is also on the ESSA page on the OPI website. Please send your feedback to the email address that will be listed at the end of the webinar. ESSA law on state goals states that long-term goals and interim measures of progress must be set for all students and each subgroup for each of the following: academic achievement, high school graduation rates, and English learner progress in attaining English language proficiency. Goals and measures of progress must be designed such that low-scoring subgroups must show more progress than other subgroups in order to close the gaps between them. The same is true for subgroups with low graduation rates. All of these things are specified in the ESSA law and must be incorporated into the state plan. The state is required to set statewide goals, and schools will be compared to the statewide goals on the school-wide report card. However, schools are not held accountable or penalized for not meeting those goals. This is very different from No Child Left Behind. Montana considered many options for setting ambitious interim and long-term goals. In this work, it was deemed unrealistic to use the methods other states had previously used to make gain estimations, such as taking the lowest performing achievement level student percentage and dividing this number by half to create the expected gain a state would have in 6 years. Therefore, the OPI derived a 6-step process, which was shared with stakeholders during the September 2016 meeting to elicit feedback on the goal-setting process, to determine if it was 1, data-informed, 2, reasonable, and 3, ambitious for state-level goals. To describe the process in more detail, the OPI shared trends for NAEP, ACT, and graduation rates. Using the process, the OPI provided a projection to each trendline assessment for reference. The same process will be applied to the Smarter Balanced Data scores once the state has 2 years of reliable data. Lots of variability surrounds our race ethnicity percentages due to the small sample size reported for these subgroups. For Montana's K-12 public schools, roughly 81% of our students are white, 12% are American Indian, Alaskan Native, 4% are Hispanic, 1% are Black, and about 1% are Asian or Native Hawaiian Pacific Islander. A focus of ESSA is to narrow these achievement gaps between our subgroups. In making aspirational state-level goals, we should be mindful of these nuances with achievement levels for small sample sizes. This slide lists the subgroups Montana will submit in the plan for statewide goals. This slide details the process Montana is proposing to use in order to set long-term goals. States are allowed to set the number of years for long-term goals. Based on feedback within the original plan that was submitted from several educational organizations, Montana has determined to set goals for 6 years. The current state plan and examples presented in this webinar use the 2015-2016 school year as the baseline data to develop goals from. When the data from 2016-2017 is available, it will then be used as the baseline. The goals are set so that the number of students that are not proficient is reduced a designated percent every year. The examples here will be presented using 5% and 7% reduction in the percentage of students not proficient. The method ensures that schools, subgroups with lower proficiency rates will be asked to show more progress than those with higher rates, as ESSA requires. The same method will be used on graduation rates and English learner progress. The goals will also take into account the enrollment size for the school or subgroup the goal is intended for. This is being included into Montana's plan so that large subgroups will not need to show as much progress, since it requires more students to change their proficiency rates in large subgroups in order to meet the long-term goals. Montana is setting long-term goals that are both ambitious and attainable. This slide shows what long-term and interim goals look like for English language arts when using the 2015-2016 Smarter Balanced data as the baseline. There are two scenarios presented for each subgroup of students. One scenario is for a 5% reduction in non-proficient students each year, and the other is for a 7.5% reduction in non-proficient students, which, as you can see, ultimately results in more students being proficient each year. 7.5% will require more progress each year, and a long-term goal that of course is higher than 5%. This is especially prevalent when the baseline proficiency rate is low. For example, the English learners start at an 8.3% baseline and must increase to 34.9%, using a 5% reduction in the percentage of students not proficient and 44.9% at a 7.5% reduction. You may also notice that since the English learners' baseline rate is low, they must show more progress in order to close the achievement gap of this subgroup when compared to the all students group. This slide shows the same long-term and interim goals for progress as the previous slide, except this one is for mathematics. Since the proficiency rates are lower for mathematics when compared to English language arts, more progress must be shown in math. The same process is used for setting long-term goals of graduation rates. Graduation rates are mostly high already, so not as much progress will need to be shown using the current method of setting goals. You can compare the difference of long-term goals between 5% and 7.5% reduction of students failing to graduate on this slide. Long-term and interim goals must also be set for English learner progress. English learner progress is the percent of students that show an improvement of 0.5 or more on total proficiency on the WIDA English Language Proficiency Test that is given every year to all English learners. Both scenarios for 5% and 7.5% reduction are presented in the slide. These numbers are based on the baseline from the 2015-2016 school year and will be adjusted when the new baseline data from 2016-2017 is available. Thank you for listening to this webinar. Please take time to fill in the guiding questions document and send it to Sherry Harlow. Her email is listed on this slide and on the guiding questions document. Analysis of these questions will be reviewed the second week of June and will help guide Montana's state plan. If you have additional questions, please contact either Eric Meredith or Debbie Hunsaker. Thank you.